Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Tech Talks with Nasscom Insights. I'm Prerna Buckshee, Senior Analyst, part of the GCC Digital Transformation and Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Charters at Nasscom Insights, and I'll be your host for the day. In today's episode, we are going to discuss the key GCC trends in the BFSI landscape, especially in the last couple of years, where we have seen an increased focus on India as a key hub spot for setting up and expansion of GCCs. And to join us in this discussion are our three esteemed panelists. We have with us Vijayabaskar Krishnamurthy, who is associated with Global Services Fiserv as the Vice President for Global Business Solutions. He currently heads the team responsible for technology delivery of the payments merchant, acquiring platforms across different regions, and has been with the company for over 6 years now. Vijay has over 22 years of rich industry experience, having worked across the globe with various facets of the banking and finance organizations that include asset management, capital markets, and payments. Also, he holds a master's in computer applications and is currently based out of Chennai. We also have with us Mr. Kaul, Director, People and Transformation, Talent Acquisition at NatWest, wherein Kaul is responsible for creating a world-class talent acquisition function to enable business growth in a high-paced and transformative environment through leadership, budget, employer brand, capacity, capability, and people management. Kaul brings to the table a well-rounded experience from business operations to human resources in Fortune companies. He has built successful global talent acquisition teams for Capgemini and Tata Communications, along with regional responsibilities for Amex in Japan and APAC regions. As regional director for talent and for United Health Group's APAC and EMEA regions as recruitment operations head. He spent the first 7 years of his career in business with GE, a Harvard Business School graduate. Kaul has won several awards and accolades, such as Top Talent Brander Award for Asia by LinkedIn, Employee of the Year at GE, the CEO Award at Tata Communications for Global TA Transformation, etc. And our third and final panelist for today's session is Mr. J.C. Vishwanath, who is Principal and Head of the Growth and Operations Practice as part of the GCOE Accelerator platform at Zinnov. With a career spanning over 12 years, JC has experience advising the Fortune 1000 companies around growth and maturity, strategy and operations, center transformation, cost optimization, and product portfolio assessment. So a very warm welcome to all of you. Welcome to the session and thank you for your time. Okay, so before we dive into the questions, I would like to give a brief context of our discussion today, which would essentially be centered around various themes such as talent, location strategy, technology, focus, so on and so forth, encapsulated in our recently released GCC quarterly for Q2 CY 2022. This is the second edition of the quarterly bulletin, which Nasscom has published in collaboration with Zinnov, and the study encompasses key insightful trends transforming the GCC landscape in India for the second quarter of 2022, that is April to June 2022. The compendious publication initiated in May 2022 provides a regular overview of the GCC India ecosystem, underscores new GCCs in the ecosystem with granular insights on their key focus areas, verticals they are operating in, headcount, headquarters, while also highlighting expansion of centers for established GCCs in India. Moreover, the current issue endeavors to capture the granularity of the GCC landscape in the BFSI sector, corroborated by detailed case studies from the three industry subverticals, namely banking, financial services, and insurance. Companies in this section include leading enterprises such as Allstate, ANZ, HSBC, Sun Life, Wells Fargo, NatWest, PayPal, and many more such organizations. Additionally, a key element of the report, the GCC Intensity Index, which is a multi-factor assessment framework created by Nasscom and Zinnov since the first edition, used to track and measure the performance of new GCCs as well as the expansion of existing GCCs setting up base in India, continues its rating of very high in the second quarter of 2022 as well, similar to the first quarter. The index encompasses various parameters such as GCC establishment or expansion, industry verticals, functions, tiers, headquarter locations, India presence in terms of number of locations, envisaged work profile, etc., and endeavors to establish a touchstone to measure the progress and potential of GCCs in India. Detailing all the above factors and much more, I would now request JC to take us through some of the key highlights of the recently published India GCC Trends Quarterly Analysis Q2 CY 2022 report, as well as provide a flavor of the key trends shaping the GCC landscape in the BFSI segment. Over to you, JC.
Thanks, Prerna. Good morning, everyone. Uh, Thanks for having me. And just continuing in line with what you mentioned, Prerna, I think what we've seen is very good momentum on how the GCOEs have been expanding and leveraging India in Q2 vis-a-vis what we saw in Q1 as well, right? Like you mentioned, the GCC Intensity Index, which is a sort of a holistic metric that captures the existing GCC's presence and expansion across different sections, sectors, locations in India, has been rated very high, continuing its momentum from Q1 itself, right? If you look at some of the numbers, just broad level landscape view of what we've seen in Q2, almost 19 new GCCs have been set up in the second quarter of 2022 itself, and almost 75% of all of these GCCs are actually working across different areas, right? When I say across different areas, I mean ER&D or IT or business process management and so on and so forth. And a very good high percentage, almost 3/4 of these GCCs are actually across software and internet, retail, and BFSI itself, right? So it'll be interesting to also, as we discuss today, understand what are some of those triggers specifically from a BFSI perspective. But largely, the reason why we are seeing this increased GCC leadership from India, I think, is there are 4 or 5 solid reasons that are contributing to this, right? I think one of the sort of key themes is the entire digital transformation agenda of the larger organization is now becoming one of the mandates of the India centers or the GCC center itself, right? Some of these organizations are actually spearheading the larger digital transformation agenda of their organizations from their India centers, which means more portfolio, which means more new initiatives, more talent that they would have to employ in a certain way, right? The second thing is just leveraging the existing strength of the India ecosystem itself, right? An ecosystem includes partners, it includes startups, it includes service providers, it includes any stakeholder that's going to enable you to add larger value in terms of the portfolio that you carry to back to the HQ and back to the global sort of play area of problem statements itself, right? And last but not the least, the talent itself, right? So in terms of the next gen talent, in terms of what India holds as an attractive destination has always been talent itself, right? So that is a massive attraction. That is a massive pull for global organizations when they look at India and bet some of their future growth and expansion stories on India, right? So these are some of the themes that we've been seeing. Like I said, I think there are a couple of examples as well that I would want to talk about as we go on into the discussion, but I would probably pause there for now, Prerna, and then chime in later into the discussion.
Great, great. Those were some very good insights. Thank you, JC. That was indeed a very comprehensive overview of the key report findings. So without further ado, I would now like to jump straight into the questions. And I would request both Kaul and Vijay to address this first question. Starting with you, Kaul. I think it would be safe to say that human capital or talent is quintessentially one of the most important, if not the most important asset and driver for enterprises across the globe to flourish, the GCC ecosystem being no exception. So with the talent war heating up globally and companies reeling under the pressure of, the great resignation, or rather the great reshuffle, quiet quitting, multiple job offers, moonlighting, etc., what, in your experience, are the key measures that GCCs in the BFSI space are taking to act as a hotbed for attracting and retaining talent, especially next gen or Gen Z talent, whose aspirations and expectations from organizations are constantly changing? And it would be great if you could elucidate with some key examples of specific initiatives undertaken in your respective organizations to manage this talent battle. So
Sure.
starting with you, Kaul.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Prerna. Quite a loaded question. But I think the war of talent or battle of skills is real, really, right? I mean, whatever you want to call it. I also think it's an amazing time to be working in a talent space for a lot of people. But I think it starts with what's the proposition for talent, right? So we need to start with a why. what's the broader purpose? Right? What's the belongingness to that purpose? And if that's not established, then I think it's transitionary relationship with talent, and they'll keep moving, and which is what we are seeing a lot happens in the market right now. Right. So we specifically link each system, each process, each dialogue, culture to our purpose-led strategy, that is to champion potential at NatWest, right? And so can we have a more regional roles done out of India? To what JC was saying, the report is sort of elucidating that we have that capability. There is increased focus on global mobility. We take bets on people to develop towards their reskilling and skilling. That builds better for pride factor for people, and it sort of also motivates and inspires other colleagues. Also looking at ensuring belongingness within organization is important, and a big focus, I think, for us and also for GCCs at large. There are people respected for who they are, their well-being, their trust, respect, the ways of working, which is an evolving space for all of us. Creating your own customized learning, how organizations spending money around, or spending money in a way that's an investment of sorts, where people can skill and reskill themselves based on where they want to take their career. The external education, the minimal approvals to sort of cut the bureaucracy from the system to sort of move at pace. Basically, really empowering people without too much governance. So we do a lot of that, right? So how do we empower to allow for faster decision making, thereby really unlocking an army of leaders and allow for succession planning, right? Because that's another area where a lot of GCs are focusing on to grow their own talent and have the succession pipeline sort of ready. We at NatWest do that in a way it allows really people to own and take higher level of accountability, and that also links to what GCCs eventually can do and deliver in India for wider firms. You look at industry trends, technically tends to be very harsh with internal talent, I believe, right? And we need to give more opportunities to talent, showcasing existing capabilities and really bet on them, as I said initially. So don't write them off straight away. We focus on growing our own strategically within NatWest through various channels of growth that we have. The talent challenge is really across the board, right? Across the companies, irrespective GCC or a third party or which industry, people tend to really keep India talent in the same bucket of cost mostly when you look at GCCs, and it's not correct in my view. We really need to transition to pay for value more than just cost of talent anymore, right? So on ways of working, if you think, definition of workplace really has changed. It's evolving. It's a hybrid model now. And it's new for everybody, right? So it's home and office together. So how do we make the families more inclusive, especially related to corporate sustainability? What is the value and purpose of organizations? And how can we make families more connected to workplaces than just employees? Right. This is another focus that links to attracting talent and focusing area for GCCs. As an industry, how can we work with academia? I think that's a white space. I was reading on a research some time back to make really population employable. So Bfsi ready, really, right? To create that pipeline of talent through academia as well. And how do we use early careers as a talent intervention and not just as any campus hiring sourcing channel, but really as a strategic talent intervention to really fuel business talent and capability gaps. This is an area of increased focus from a GCC and a big focus for NatWest. And I think the last, maybe a second last, I would want to sort of talk about is the concentration risk, right? It's real-time load balancing, and from a GCC standpoint, right scale across centers. Also, the work type is quite important across centers, and how solid is the resilience built into the GCC model. It's a game changer, as we all know. So cost of rehire, cost of training, cost of productivity, leadership time spent on this. And as digitization capability takes more from the pie, how do we shrink and yet grow? It's all a capability and talent play eventually. And then the last one I would say, I think I see a lot around talent attraction, because we are now at NatWest, as an example, shifting from our overarching talent attraction proposition away from a historic focus to sort of on solely reactive and tactical recruiting marketing activities in response to specific business hiring needs, depending on which business we're hiring for. While we continue to satisfy these short-term business critical requests, in tandem, we are also adopting a longer-term, more strategic approach focused on really building brand awareness in the recruiting space by driving brand affinity, brand consideration, growing talent pools, and really offer valuable recruiting sourcing opportunities for the business. This is a bit of a strategy playing out right now in 2022. We have prioritized two specific pipelines from a tech specific, tech and data that we are looking at an always on campaigns. This is all playing across full channel mix, including paid media, social, programmatic, CRM, on-site via our dedicated career site. So we are building really robust channel and content strategies that aim to capitalize on, the really right channel mixes, platforms and targeting. Really. It's all depending on really the objective and subject matter and audience. So I'd said these are some of the top of the mind things that come to me when you talk about talent. Like I said, you have a loaded question.
Yes, it is loaded. Okay, thanks. Some great insights there, Kaval. Okay, and Vijay, I would like to know your perspective also on the same from, a Fiserv perspective as well as at a broad BFSI GCC level.
Yeah, the broad 360 level, I think that was a loaded answer from KK, right? So I think he covered the entire spectrum in terms of, what each of the GCCs are doing, right?
Right.
So I don't think anything different from what KK has mentioned. Completely agree with his thought process on this, but just a few things and specific to what Pfizer we are doing, right? So as far as this pandemic is concerned, I think the way this entire ecosystem has evolved has completely changed, right? And there are a different set of expectations from employers and then employees, and the employers need to absolutely adapt to the expectations of the employers. And what this has done so far is created few key demands. And what are those demands? If you look at it at a broad level, it's more about higher need for new age skills. There is an emerging demand for freshers, right? Rise of hybrid working models and also hiring beyond geographies. And more or less, I think this got covered in what KK mentioned. And we, from a Fiserv standpoint, we are focused on upskilling teams. That's a key focus area for us, and providing internal growth opportunities and democratizing technologies. And what we are doing specific to these areas is, one is our TAP programs, which is obviously going to the engineering colleges, hiring them and making sure that we are able to mentor them, groom them right from the scratch. Right? So we call it the Technology Analyst program, and that's been a big success for the last 2 years. And I think we will continue to do that and more of that, just making sure that we are able to build the talent for the future. The other thing that we have been successful is the Forward for Her program, which is basically engages women who are resuming work post their career breaks, and we offer them specialized support through the hiring process and their growth journeys. The stickiness to the organization is very high over there. So we have seen a lot of success through the Forward for Her program. And finally, our internal mobility program, right? So we don't want people to be working on the same technology, the same application forever. We have been encouraging, and we recommend that people move after they have learned a good amount of technology and domain knowledge, so that they will be able to impart the knowledge to other teams. So internal mobility across teams, across geographies is something that we always look for and promote, and that's been a successful area as well, where we have been able to retain talent and make sure that we are able to show them growth. In addition to this, what I'm personally proud of is we have a very strong and inclusive workplace culture that looks to attract diverse talent across veterans, LGBTQ communities, young talents, and women professionals, right? So for example, for women professionals, we have a network called WIN, Women Impact Network. It's run by the women folks, but AB supported by all of the men folks who are actually allies for that particular employee resource group. So we also have other resource groups like Thrive, which actually helps the disabled and works towards the empowerment of the disabled associates in the organization, or now also as a community at large, right? So what stands out is the inclusive environment that we have created, which is aided by a good culture in the organization that enables the associate to bring their whole selves to the organization. So they don't have to hide anything. They are happy being themselves in the organization. And right. I think that creates a big difference in terms of the way people come to work and are able to provide their best at work. So those are the few things that we are doing from Fiserv standpoint.
Wonderful, wonderful. No, great thoughts. And I think, DEI certainly is a big part now of every organization's business strategy. It's no longer like a nice to have. It's a must have that, across organizations, everybody's looking at adopting that. So great insights there. Okay, so my second question pertains to the location strategy, and I would request Kaul to take this one. So Kaul, while tier 1 cities are still the hotspot for BFSI GCCs in the last couple of years, we are seeing a clear traction in terms of tier 2, tier 3 cities such as Thiruvananthapuram, Ahmedabad, Kochi, Nagpur, Indore, etc., emerging as attractive destinations for companies to set up new GCCs or expand in terms of new centers of existing GCCs. In fact, even in our 2 quarterly reports released till date, we are seeing this trend coming out, especially since the onset of COVID. I think, with the work from home, work from anywhere model becoming part of the new normal, this trend has been accentuated. So I would like to understand, Kanwal, if NatWest is also looking at location diversification to tier 2, tier 3 cities specifically, or if you're observing a similar trend at the broader BFSI GCC level. And if yes, what is your opinion, on the key enablers that make these destinations lucrative?
Sure. I think it's a very topical point around location strategy. But before we go there, the past question, I just want to share that a good news that yesterday we were rated as one of the top 5 organizations in India working for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I just want to share a good news from that, right?
Wonderful.
All right. Back to location strategy. So look, from our perspective, NatWest, we're very clear about our location strategy in India, really to leverage fully where we are at the moment. We are not looking at a tier 2, tier 3 cities as of now. However, GCCs broadly are looking at opportunities to expand and definitely have tier 1, 2, and 3 cities in their property and location strategies, right? I think in the last Q2 GCC Intel, we saw about 19 new GCCs set up in India that moved the Nasscom Intensity Index that you're talking about, the rating to a very high, approximately. 75% of the new GCCs established in India were really from the software and internet, retail, and BFSI vertical too. I think there were 2 of the BFSI as well. So tier 3 cities actually saw emergence of new GCC setup, which is very good news. And we also saw one established GCC move centered into a tier 2 city in that report too, right? Which is very positive. And I think this is a testament really to the changing organization and candidate behavior, all centered around talent anywhere, right? Which in my view, we will see more of as we see development of GCCs. And I think it's quite a positive evolution. I think the point really is around, we have to think about it like this, right? I mean, 2 years back, we were in a full contact environment. The last 2 years were totally virtual. Now we are in a hybrid and something evolving. I don't think anybody's got the right answer, what is the right mix of it, but I think we all are learning through this evolution. But I think what it has really unlocked is the talent is really almost everywhere, which is where the government and the Nasscom also is getting pushed to sort of take a look at how do we influence the existing policies that sort of, looks at the tax issues around looking at, different countries when you go and work. How do you look at different even cities within India to not to sort of, have, otherwise you have to sort of, manage the whole labor laws around as you sort of, hire talent there.
Right.
So I think those are some of the things that are sort of unlocking. And I think it's all very positive in my view from a location strategy perspective. It is bound to evolve in a way that it becomes like your key employee value proposition over a period of time. That, you could come into an organization, develop your skills in the area that you want to, grow in a career that you would want to, and be where you really want to. I think that just unlocks a huge amount of flexibility around the policies that companies had, but I think it's expanding more.
Right. No, wonderful. No, great thoughts, and totally agree with you on that. Great points there. Okay, so JC, I would now request you to help us with an overall perspective on my previous 2 questions pertaining to essentially the talent and location strategy.
Yeah. I think you have to look at talent and location strategy hand in hand, right? It's predominantly an organizational priority. It comes from the top. So essentially, some of the discussions that we have been having with center heads and different leadership members from the India GCOE community is essentially around how I can solve for the talent attraction, talent attrition, and retention problem at scale in the long term, right? Because the last couple of years have actually made a lot of companies stand up and take notice of what is otherwise perhaps been a more slow process, right? So one of the things that organizations are now doing is just looking inwards first and understanding where their workforce is actually at this point in time, right? And figuring out if maybe I can have slightly more flexible, creative models of working, like have multiple satellite offices, for example, or have hub and spoke models of operations, where you have certain temporary setups or sort of working spaces that you've taken up, just so that you can be closer to a good percentage or proportion of your workforce and have better engagement and therefore better retention, lower attrition, and so on, right? But the larger question on talent and predominantly the location strategy is, I think, also stemming from the fact that a lot of the workforce in the tier 1 cities in the last couple of years have anyway been working from some of these tier 2 and tier 3 locations. And if that has been seamless, that has been non-disruptive, why can we not take that up at scale, and why can we not sort of invest and leverage that a little bit more, right? And therefore, like most of the organizations in Bangalore and Hyderabad might have a good 30-40% of their employees from different states in South India anyway, right? So if that's not being disrupted, then why can I not double down upon that as a maybe a lever to even attract more talent, right? And location analysis typically also.
Sorry to interrupt you. We lost you in the middle. The connectivity
Oh,
got
okay.
So can you just repeat the sentence you just said, the last sentence?
Yeah. So what I was saying was essentially organizations will now look at location analysis as a strategic lever to attract a larger market of talent that possibly now opens up vis-a-vis saying having a job description and having a location tagged against it, which was probably happening a couple of years ago, right? So I think that opens up many more doors when it comes to looking at how you can attract and open yourself up to a larger talent pool itself, right? And location is not, while talent is a key factor, there are multiple other factors as well, right? I think Kanwal alluded to some of those, right? Some of the incentives that organizations or state governments are actually looking at in different states that's actually enabling, subsidizing setting up of some of these centers, right? Like Gift City in Ahmedabad is a very good example of how BFSI organizations have been invited to open up their operations and offices in a place like Ahmedabad, right? It obviously has the cost advantages, but more importantly, I think it helps you realize that you can actually go to a slightly more untapped market, talent market, and actually get a better, more engaged, sticky talent vis-a-vis following the trend and going to probably a Bangalore or a Hyderabad, right? So I think those are also peripheral factors that come into play when you look at locations. Tier 2, Tier 3s, I think will gain momentum as we move on, simply because I think some of the hiring in the last couple of years in Tier 1 locations is not taking up the same pace at which it was anticipated maybe more than 2 years ago because of the battle for talent and massive revenge hiring, as we are calling it, post-COVID by some of these organizations, right? So that's my view on that.
Wonderful. JC, really compelling thoughts there. Okay, so moving on to my next question. So my next two questions revolve around tech priorities in the BFSI GCC space, and I would request both Vijay and Kaul to take these. Vijay, I would request you to address this one first. So the BFSI sector overall has really been one of the early adopters of digital transformation, and we have seen organizations in this segment progressing by leaps and bounds in terms of tech transformation, especially in the last decade. We have also witnessed multiple startups in the fintech and insurtech space sprouting and prospering for quite some time now. So at a broader level with respect to BFSI GCCs, what do you think are the key levers that are helping GCC units steer digital transformation? And it would be great if you could share any specific innovative digital initiatives with regard to your respective organizations.
Sure. So if you look at digital transformation, right, I think that provides a significant opportunity in the way we actually operate these days, right? I mean, it has fundamentally altered the way we've been operating so far, and it creates a completely different value for our clients. And there are 2 or 3 key drivers that I could think of. One of the first and foremost is the consumer behavior, the evolving consumer behavior that has happened. And with technology advancements and access to multiple devices, I think digital journey of users is evolving too. Basically, consumers are looking at seamless experience, whether you're online or whether you're offline. And because we are in the payment space, we have seen that happen, right? What we have seen is from digital payments to mobile payments to through QR code, and then we are evolving into voice-based payments and moving towards wearables, where wearables are making payments, and it will continue to evolve. And the most important thing is these are all evolving at a very fast pace. So that is all driven by the consumer behavior. The second one, we spoke about it a little bit, but one of the things that is the driver is the skilled talent. And especially with respect to GCCs, I think the talent availability here, it makes a big difference because a lot of organizations are actually looking for the GCCs to get the required talent for the digital acceleration, right? And so it's important for the GCCs to create space for the employees to ideate, collaborate, and innovate so that they'll be able to arrive at a meaningful solution. And a combination of process, culture, people, and technology will make that happen. But it's important that you create that environment so that you will derive the best out of the skill talent that you have. The last thing that I could think of in terms of drivers is the emerging technologies itself, right? Because GCCs are slowly moving towards digital transformation hub. They are no longer an extension of what they have been doing for their parent organization, but they are treated as digital transformation hub and one of the core options in terms of what the organizations are looking at. And there is greater focus in terms of doing high value work and building competencies, which brings in greater depth and breadth of services, which makes a huge difference in the way GCCs itself are perceived. And as far as Fiserv is concerned, what we have done is we have created a deep-rooted culture of engineering excellence, client centricity, and innovation. You asked me to talk about an example. Over the last two seasons, what we have done is we have come up with our flagship program, which is BIG, which is a Big Business Innovation Group, where we have employees, who would pitch in with their ideas, and then there is a core group that evaluates, does the interview, and then these are all market-facing ideas, which actually transforms the way we are actually doing business, right? And eventually, the teams are formed. They'll be able to get present to the business owners in terms of what those groundbreaking ideas are and take it towards implementation. Last 2 years have been very, very successful, and it has paved the way for for us to do more on the space and making sure that we are able to make a big impact through GCC. So that's the experience that we have as far as steering digital transformation is concerned.
Wonderful, wonderful. Very, very interesting thoughts. Very interesting thoughts there, Vijay. Kaul,
Sure.
eager to know your thoughts on the same.
Sure. No, it's an important one, and I think Vijay did cover some of them. But I think I have listed my top 5 from a lever perspective that is helping GCC units steer through digital transformation. One, I think, is the digitization across the whole value chain, ownership of customer journeys, and continuing really to build the new age talent and domain expertise, which I think Vijay did touch upon as well. Second, I think, is the ecosystem approach to really delivery that allows for differentiated capabilities while really returning focus on enhancing margins as well, because it's anyways a cost base to a revenue play as well for GCCs.
Right.
Third, I think for me is really the accelerated movement, from a role-based to a skill-based organization, which again, I think Vijay did touch upon, and that's sort of anyways, we're having such a wide debate on talent. This sort of plays into that. That's a big lever for us. And number 4 for me was really the rebalanced service portfolio encompassing really virtual and automated service delivery, while really reducing the concentration risk, which I initially spoke from a talent point of view as well.
Yeah.
And number 5 for me is, I think it's an important lever, is the innovation roadmap, really that incentivizes tangible outcomes and moves really towards value and outcome-based delivery. Because many GCCs in the past have been very delivery focused, but not really outcome focused. And I think just the process metric itself on completing something versus the outcome and the impact of that is now a bit of a advantage, I think, as a lever that we have. As far as an example from NatWest Group, I would like to share about Cora. Cora actually is our flagship digital offering where we are driving the whole of engineering from India, and it comes under the category called conversational AI. Right, and we are adapting AI as part of our digital strategy to serve our customers better. Within this space, the global conversational AI landscape is really evolving and guiding our direction. And Cora, if you think about it, which is our AI-driven chatbot, is currently ahead in the UK market, right? And it is the forefront of our digital innovation and provides greater self-service options to the customer. It's a suite of offering. And Cora achieved the 4th highest volume of chat globally as per our latest chatbot study shared by Finalta by McKinsey. So which was quite amazing to see the amount of volume that Cora itself is managing. And we have been obviously evolving our chatbot into delivering customer data and can be used by customers really to initiate actions. And we are also looking to provide seamless omni-channel digital experience for our customers as a bank. So that's one example I thought I could share with you guys.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Thanks, Kaul, for the interesting insights. Wonderful. And in the same vein, it would be great to understand the perspective of both of you gentlemen on what are the key mainstream technologies, such as AI, ML, cloud, cybersecurity, big data analytics, as well as emerging technologies such as Web 3.0, metaverse, quantum computing, that are disrupting the BFSI GCC space at a broader GCC level, I would say, and as well as at a specific enterprise level for NatWest and Fiserv. So, Vijay, would you like to take this one first?
Sure. So I heard AI, machine learning for sure. The other things that I could think of is the robotic process automation is again an area that is niche and it's growing. Analytics is big, and then
Right.
APIfication, right? So it completely transforms the way we are actually going to do business. It is already making a change and it will continue to make a change. So Open API is something that is really influential in this new age. And all of these technologies actually have a potential to dramatically alter the entire technology landscape, and it's going to reshape the way financial institutions are actually operating, currently and for the foreseeable future as well. And what GCCs need to do is make sure that they're able to harness the power of these digital disruptors, if I may use that word, right? Because offering a personalized customer experience, as I said earlier, it's evolving very fast, and it's important that we're able to understand and keep up with the expectations of the customer. For example, in digital banking, what we are seeing, and as users also you've seen, hyper personalization is something of immense importance because it elevates customer experience and it attracts new clients. And if you're not going to do it, your competitor is going to do it, and you're going to lose your client, right? So all of these are actually behind the scenes powered by data analytics and maturing new age technology models. So it's important that we are able to start implementing, if you have not done that yet, and make sure that we are able to innovate and do more of this, right? The other areas that are also evolving is on cloud enablement. And there are also in-region cloud requirements that are coming through, which is important. So cloud enablement is a key area, and real-time access to data, right? So no longer people do not want to wait for data overnight batches. Those are all gone, right? So they want to get access to data immediately. And from our standpoint, right, we're talking about merchant data, transaction data, and the merchants would ideally like to get the transactions immediately. So those are all the key requirements, and these are the areas which are actually disrupting the BFSI GCC space. With respect to Fiserv, what we are doing is we have our own transformation journey, and we are focusing our efforts in terms of establishing high-end engineering teams, making sure that they are co-located and they are able to lead product build-outs. And what we are also focusing is in terms of developing our product management discipline, which is able to complement our engineering capabilities and make sure that it goes hand in hand to deliver stellar client experience. And of course, expand our capabilities in all of the technologies that we talked about, right? So analytics, artificial intelligence, so on and so forth.
Wonderful, wonderful. Interesting, very interesting thoughts. Kaval, I'd now like to come back to you and know your inputs in the same on your tech priorities and how it's disrupting.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think with it's a very important question. And of course, different organizations have different focuses, but I think there are certain skills which are very, very common, which is exactly where the whole battle of skills or talent is sort of going on. I think with Metaverse, Web3, and Industry 4.0 looming really on the horizon, the rise in demand for specialized roles and skills is really inevitable, right? Obviously, which is for the whole globe, really, not just for India included, though. While I think digital engineering programmers and developers continue to be at the forefront of digital transformation, the new roles are really springing up quite rapidly. So for us, really, UI, UX designers, low-code, no-code developers, Swift, Sterling integrator, DevOps engineers, quants, analytics, Murex, Unix shell scripts are really some of the most sought after tech talents in the current landscape and our focus. Additionally, I think beyond that, cybersecurity engineers, blockchain developers, and Unity 3D developers are also gaining prominence in the market and the GCC space as well. But the ones that I said in between are the ones that we are technically focused on from a tech build-up perspective too.
Great. Yeah. Very interesting thoughts there. Great. So, JC, I would now request you to give an overall perspective on what are your thoughts on the overall tech focus areas of BFSI GCCs.
Yeah. Thanks, Prerna. So I think Kanwal and Vijay covered most of the aspects. Just a couple of examples, right? So if you look at the broader theme of digital transformation, right? That's the broader theme that a lot of organizations globally are increasingly leveraging India for, right? And that opens up a plethora of opportunities specifically driven and enabled by some of these technology areas, right? It could be DevOps, it could be, cloud first, multi-cloud, API driven microservices sort of approach as well, right? So if you look at, say, for example, the HSBC's technology team in India, it's the largest technology team that they have globally in India, right? It's probably 20,000 plus folks that they have across both their existing and contract staff itself, right? So a couple of things that they're doing are actually driving the 2027 strategy globally for the larger organizations through some of these initiatives from the India Center itself, right? They're actually developing more DevOps tooling, expanding the DevOps tooling landscape specifically from the India centers itself, right? That's giving them more stories, more, reducing lead times and so on. The other thing they're also doing is sort of going with this philosophy of build once and use many times, right? By having multiple APIs and microservices driven approach, right? That's sort of also enabling the larger organization and the capabilities that they have within the organization to get enhanced through certifications and reskilling specifically to solve for some of these requirements itself, right? They're also having a multi-cloud and cloud first approach to the larger theme of digital transformation itself. And what this goes to show is, and there are multiple examples that we've specifically tried to call out in the report as well, right? And one of the core themes of what we're trying to tell the story is, you have to be proactive enough as a GCC leader to specifically understand what are those core themes that you need to develop, what are the capabilities you need to develop in your India center, so that you are at the forefront of that digital transformation journey for your global organization, right? So if there are 4 things that you need to sort of upskill your teams on and get talent from market or leverage even universities, right? From a, combined capability development perspective, not just hiring, then have initiatives specifically focused around those areas with metrics, with eventual end goals that you're trying to reach. And then that becomes your vantage point to go to the headquarters and say, hey, I am best positioned to drive this, right? And it just doesn't become a cost story at all at the end of the day then.
Right. Like, no, interesting. I think the sort of what, if I would put in a nutshell, the sort of impact created by GCCs is what really is now the new aim, I think, that they should be looking at. Rather than, it's obviously moved from the cost and support sort of role to impact creation, and also influencing the headquarters in a lot of ways, guiding them, of what they're capable of. Okay, great. It's very, very interesting thoughts. My last and final question is around the role of ESG in the BFSI space, and I would request you to take this one, Kanwal. With all the buzz around clean, green energy, sustainability, and ESG reporting gaining importance, I would like to understand how the ESG theme is playing out in the scheme of things for BFSI GCCs in terms of investment decisions, sustainable financing, as well as the regulatory agenda. And also considering that BFSI is a sector where compliances, regulations, and governance are of utmost importance, what are the challenges that you're facing or preempting in the near future as ESG reporting gains momentum and would need to be embedded in sort of business practices and systems?
Sure. I think it's again another topical discussion and something that is really, really getting a lot of prominence in wider organizations, not just GCCs really. So allow me just 3-4 minutes. I'll give you a bit more perspective on this, what we are doing and what I think is the role of ESG in the BFSI space as well, right? And I would again start, as always in my answers, as a purpose-led organization, because we're all bound by purpose at NatWest. The NatWest Group in India really is committed to playing a leading role in the fight against climate change and really building a sustainable future through a very meaningful action, really, right? So through the group's climate action initiatives, the endeavor also is to sort of address the broad spectrum of compelling need for conserving biodiversity for sustainable development, for example, right? As an organization that recognizes climate change amongst its top 3 priorities, it is important that we address the crucial aspects of ESG, the whole environment, social, and the governance side framework. NatWest Group in India specifically, through its efforts and programs, we cover two of the group's purpose priorities, that is climate and enterprise, to really generate sustainable and market-supported solutions for the community and biodiversity to the edifice of three pillars of landscape, communities, and institutions. And since its inception in back in 2007, really, the program has benefited over 185,000 families across 2,100 villages in 13 states just in India to be more resilient to climate change impacts, right? And really addressing the need for water security, sustainable agriculture, or our projects initiatives have really increased water efficiency. So I'll give you some examples. So we reduced water usage by 40% in 45,000 hectare agricultural land, right? Positively impacting about 40,000 farmers through that piece of work. We also look at construction of rainwater harvesting structures across multiple states in the country. It has really helped save nearly about 1 lakh liters of water annually. In continuation to this good work, NatWest Group in India, through its sustainability arm, hosts NatWest Earth Group Hero Awards, which I'm sure is quite a well-known body of work that we do in the country, which really recognizes many of the countries who have expanded and strengthened efforts in contributing to India's exemplary record in management of wildlife, habitats, forests, in an extremely complex landscape comprising of 1.2 billion people who are really seeking criminal justice and competing for land, air, water, energy, while managing more than 8% of the world's biodiversity. So, so that forum is quite well known in the country. We call it NatWest Group Hero Awards. This is what we do, really, right, as a summary. And I think to your question on what is the role of ESG, then in the BFSI space, there are three things that I think are quite important from ownership and accountability standpoint. One, unlike I think other sectors, Scope 1 emission are low for BFSI sector, which is good. Yet the BFSI firms have a vital role, I think, in the global financial ecosystem as they support economies, businesses, trades, and individuals, right? And however, if you look at businesses and economies, they constantly face stability challenges from climate challenge, social outbreaks, health crisis, corporate governance. Thus, I think increase the risk of BFSI firms and capital invest in financial supports because the loans, the investment, the services that happen to BFSI customers, right? So, for example, with the impact of pandemic, right, globally, the financial firms have faced uncertainty and tremendous financial losses. On the contrary, the firms with a stronger focus on meeting sustainable goals actually have outperformed their traditional peers during the pandemic. So accordingly, the pandemic outbreak really has demonstrated the importance of defining a new reality for BFSI, I think, by considering the importance of delivering societal impact beyond just financial returns to develop sustainable practices. Number two, I think, over the years, the BFSI firms have adopted ESG factors across their business processes. While in the past, the adoption was primarily in risk and compliance, operational and process efficiencies, and now even integrating ESG in product innovation to drive purpose, right? So the adoption of ESG, I think, has grown significantly within the financial services. Example, the BFSI firms have brought their focus beyond CSR to a more focused ESG agenda and adopted really, I think, the whole integration to develop sustainable practice and develop purpose-driven best practices to meet sustainability goals, which is why, the BFSI in a way is also influencing the whole ESG agenda for the wider industry as well. And the third, I think, is as a thought leader, of course, in corporate environment, the BFSI sector has already prioritized the ESG adoption. I mean, if you think about in their products, like I said, operational processes, corporate strategy, to deliver really purpose by integrating the ESG factors. So through this approach, the BFSI sector is not only driving the digital sort of agenda, but also creating a long-term value, which you were talking about, the very reason of BFSI and the impact we can create from here to the stakeholders, and also looking at building sustainable organization, thereby, contributing towards creating a better future and creating real value for not just for your own employees and organization, but really for the wider industry and the area in the country that you work for.
Absolutely. No, that was wonderful. Very, very wonderful thoughts and inputs, Kanwal. Thanks for that. Great. So I think with this, we come to the end of today's discussion. Yeah, sorry.
Prerna, if I can just add to what
Sure.
said.
Sure.
Yeah. So first of all, great to hear what NatWest had done right. So, I mean, I think you should be extremely proud of all of the initiatives that you've been part of. So kudos to your organization on that. Just a couple of things to add, right? From a Fiserv standpoint, what are we doing? And at Fiserv, we strongly believe that doing good is good business, right? And we have created a safe and healthy environment for our associates, to ensure the sustainability of our resources and workforce, and making sure that we are able to support the communities where our people live, and make sure that there are proper social responsibility programs that are there, focusing mainly on financial literacy, education, environment, and health and wellness, right? And recently, we, as part of our Fiserv Gives Back program, this is basically us giving back to the society, which is, where we engage in a thoughtful, meaningful, and impactful experience with the community. What we have done is we have established STEM labs in 8 government schools in Tamil Nadu in India, which is basically taking science, technology, engineering, mathematics closer to the school children, right? So we start from ground up. What it does, it creates a meaningful impact and inspire these young minds, creating opportunities for growth and making sure that we are able to elevate the value of STEM education within our communities and society, right? Because these are all government schools, so these are all people who may not have access to it to start with. So I think that's the difference that we are making to the environment.
No, great. Wonderful initiatives, both at NatWest and Fiserv. I think it was really great to hear your views on your organization's initiatives that have been put into place. So great. So with this, we come to the end of today's discussion. This has truly been a compelling session with a lot of incisive insights. Thanks a lot, JC, Kaul, and Vijay, for your time and the intriguing insights. That's it from this edition of Tech Talk. Stay tuned for more insightful discussions happening in the Indian tech industry with Nasscom Insights YouTube channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. Till then, it's goodbye from everyone here at Nasscom Insights.